I'm sorry, Kimberly, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Chief.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, could you hear the first part, the intro? It
I
looked like
heard the
everything just kind
intro.
of shut down for a second here. Okay, let me share one more time and see if it works this time. Sorry for the technical difficulties here, everyone. All right, can everyone see the NERIS screen? Kimberly and Bailey, can you see that?
Yes.
All right, very good. Thank you. All right, sorry about that. So NERIS, the National Emergency Response Information System. I know many of you are already aware of NERIS. This has been talked about for a couple of years. And the reality is we were waiting on, FSRI, USFA, as those things kind of move forward. And as we moved into the last phase, as FEMA Region 5, we were going to move forward come December 1st. This additional time just gives us more time to get our departments currently onboarded. So what is NERIS? I think everyone probably knows the answer to that already. Again, the presentation that was shared with you, and where you see a click here, you can click directly on either the document or the click here. It will take you to those resources. We want to provide the resources to you. NERIS has a bunch of resources already created, and you'll see a number of links in here that you can use. So please use this presentation yourselves. Go ahead and go through it, and you can click through the individual pieces as well. So the National Emergency Response Information System, replacing our current NFIRS system, or National Fire Incident Reporting System. Of course, just in terminology, we know that we do far more than fires these days. Fire departments, our scope continues to grow, and NERIS, the goal of NERIS is to really be able to capture all of those pieces. If you've heard me speak at all in the last couple of months, you will hear me talk about data. You'll hear me talking about telling our story. And the reality is all of those pieces are necessary to properly sell our story. Hold on, I'm getting somebody saying that they cannot see our presentation.
I can see it.
You can see it. All right, I'm going to continue here, and if someone can just monitor the chat there and see if there's a technical issue on that side. The goal of this is to improve data accuracy, reporting capabilities, and resource allocation. So we're going to go through our portion, which is the state. We're realistically the liaison between NERIS and our local fire departments. We know that you are the boots on the ground, and the most important part of this entire program is the boots on the ground and getting this information into the system and then being able to use this information for actionable intelligence. It's one thing to collect data. It's another thing to be able to collect the data and utilize it to strengthen the fire service across the state. So the different improvements you'll see is NERIS is using some more plain language or kitchen table language to reduce confusion, less about the numbers, less about all the codes that we've had to use over all the years. It'll be simplified. So they're going to modernize the values. They're also going to modernize how you enter the information in, better searchable fields, easier to utilize. And I truly mean that it is easier to utilize. And then constant continuous modernization. That's really what we were missing with NFIRS, to be blunt. We were categorizing incidents into areas that they just truly didn't fit. And as the fire service change, as our environment changes, we need to make sure that we are constantly updating. And the team at FSRI, when they were granted this contract, I was incredibly excited about this group specifically taking this on. I've dealt with their organization, and they put out incredibly high quality products, incredibly technical, and they have experts in every part of the fire service that are really helping us understand and change how the fire service operates. So incredibly happy to have them on board. And the second half of the presentation here, we'll go directly to Bailey Scott, who is formerly with ESRI, now with FSRI, and she is our resident expert who will walk us through the program. Questions about what happens if you don't report to NERIS? So reporting to NFIRS or NERIS are mandatory per Poll Act 207. First and foremost, I will tell you that we need the information to make sure that we are properly staffed so that we can provide you the resources that you need in the field. The reality is the Bureau of Fire Services is very slim. Realistically, even of our 86 people we have in the Bureau, the vast majority of the fire service deals with roughly 7 of those staff members from our training division, our MI prevention, and from reporting. So we need this information to be able to assist you in telling your story. The flip side of that is you also lose access to AFG grants and external funding and our state of Michigan training funds. It's not meant to be punitive. It's meant to make sure we're capturing the information and we can understand what is going on in the state of Michigan. And then how we report, there are two primary options of how you can currently report, and there will continue to remain two options for how you're going to report. So if you're currently using eNFRS, meaning you're not using a third party, you can report to NERIS with direct entry, and Bailey will show that a little bit later. And if you're using a third party vendor, that third party is likely already on board with NERIS because as we're one of the later rollouts, any of the larger organizations have already begun their integration with their RMS systems. So if you're using a third-party vendor, you are likely not going to see much difference on your end. Some of the fields will change, but as far as what action you need to take, most of that is going to be handled directly with a link between your third-party vendor and the NERIS system. We'll go over a bit of a NERIS timeline. Again, you can click any of these are clickable. If you want to view the recording from October 8th, you can do that here. When we update this presentation, we will drop this recording in case there are additional questions. And then we did add a third webinar upon request, and that'll be an evening webinar on October 29th. So next Wednesday from 7 to 8 p.m. We want to make sure we're capturing as many people as we can within the state. So you'll see step one here is gathering your data. If you click on this form here, it kind of walks you through the process. It tells you what the rollout was going to look like. Again, the timelines have changed a little bit. You'll see, December was Region 5, and the reality is we're beginning that process now. As of earlier today, we have well over 400 organizations that have already begun the onboarding process. So it's a good start in the last week. So step one was to gather your data. You're going to have specific information that NERIS is looking for, and there's a form that you'll be able to click on the next page that takes you directly to what information they're looking for. Trucks, manpower, staffing, all the other pieces that you have organizationally. This next portion here, this send contact to BFS, the reality is that was for the initial onboarding. As we're continuing to move forward with that, we have a different link now that when you enter your information to onboard, it goes directly to NERIS. And our staff has some connection to that to be able to make sure we have some accurate information and can assist you through the process. So our onboarding has already begun. And then we have our webinar number 2, which is where we're at now. Again, webinar number 3 on the 29th. We have our original onboarding date, and then we have our last day to report to NFRS, which is December 31st, 2025. And I want to be real clear on these last two pieces, which the last day to report to NFRS, meaning you cannot put any more information into NFRS January 1. Then NFRS will sunset January 31st. And when I say NFRS will sunset, we're talking about the entire system. So that is all data that has been uploaded to that. If you're using the data warehouse, we're going to work on a different presentation to assist you in getting some guidance on how to pull your data down if you're not familiar with how to do that. And if you're looking for individual reports, there are other mechanisms to do that as well. But come January 31st, we cannot rely on anything that is in the NFRS system. And I say that because NERIS will not pull any of that information forward either. NERIS is a fresh start, a clean slate for a variety of reasons. So if you don't have that data available to you, we want to make sure over the next couple months that you are downloading that data regularly so you have it accessible on your own systems because it will no longer be available through USFA. The two phases to this process. So I know when this first went out, we received a number of questions about, well, we're not ready to do this yet. The reality is phase 1 is onboarding. That is just a matter of getting every fire department in the state of Michigan set up and into the NERIS system so they can begin reporting. Step 2 is the actual reporting process. So come December 31st, we will actually begin, you will be mandated at the end of December to begin reporting. We do have departments right now who are already reporting to NERIS. And you can go ahead and make that switch at any point once your onboarding has been fully completed. Yes, does that mean you will have to run 2 different data sets throughout the year? Yes, for 2025. Going forward, again, you will only have the NERIS data. Our ask is that you get the onboarding done as early as you possibly can. Again, it does not mean that you have to begin reporting your data. Onboarding is the first step, data reporting is the second step. Our initial goals are to get everyone onboarded as quickly as we can, and then we can begin working through challenges or issues or concerns the departments have. This is just a reminder that your data is your data. Yes, we have access to some of that, but your department is wholly responsible to maintain your data. Again, if you're using a third party, discuss your data with your vendor, what that means, how you have access to it, and continue to have access to it, which for most third parties will not be an issue. You'll be able to maintain that after the fact. Those that are using the data warehouse, again, we need you to pull that data down onto your servers, and we can help walk you through that. There are some videos with USFA, and our team can assist you in that process as well. So we talk about the first couple steps in preparing for onboarding. This is the document that will walk you through the essential steps to ensure your department's ready, which is designate your points of contact, reporting requirements, user information. So the step one would be, we want you to download your data. So if you're using eNFIRS, we want you to download your data as quickly as you possibly can. This is a step-by-step guide. We are working on a video to go along with it, and USFA already has videos that are out there and available to you. The second step is to begin to gather your data. So this is data about your organization. So you can click the link right here, and it'll take you to the onboarding checklist, or you can click anywhere here, and it will also take you to the same onboarding checklist. Selecting your users. This is the onboarding process. So if your department has not already onboarded, I'd ask you to scan this QR code, or you can click the link in the presentation that was in the letter, and that will take you to the onboarding form. You will then complete the onboarding form, and that information will go to FSRI.
Tom, we also put the onboarding form in the chat.
Okay, thank you very much. I think I saw something pop up about where is the presentation. If you did not receive the Gov delivery that went out, if you go to our website under the BFS under NERIS, it will have all of our links to the letter that originally went out on October 1st, the letter that went out again yesterday with the new webinar dates, and the presentation is included in those steps. So once you begin onboarding, FSRI will send emails to registered users. When you onboard, you will select 2 department users to start. That does not mean that has to be all your users, but those are going to be what we consider kind of your super users, normally your chief and one of the other positions within the organization. FSRI will send them a link. They create their own individual sign-ins, and then they start the process of actually beginning the onboarding. So you'll start with just 2 users. That is the initial ask from Esri. I'm sorry, from FSRI. If you do not receive an email after you've begun the onboarding and submitted your form, please send an email to us. We have this lara-bfs-neris@michigan.gov. Again, there is an NFIRS mailbox. If they end up there, we can navigate that. We are asking all NERIS related questions to go to the NERIS inbox, just for ease of our staff to be able to sort through and make sure to get to you timely responses. And then we go into vendor integration. So again, if you're using eNFIRS and you're going to move to just NERIS, this is unrelated to you. But if you're using a third-party vendor, most of your vendors will be able to walk you through this without too much of an issue. They have done this across the country, and will be doing this a lot within the state over the next few weeks. So FSRI has an integration enrollment guide, which talks about getting your client ID, all the different information. And this is to set up the API, which I won't go into a ton of detail. The reality is that is just the data link that goes from your vendor software directly to NERIS. So as you are putting the incidents in, it is automatically populating them directly to NERIS. Then you're going to begin reporting your data. Again, you will no longer be able to report incidents to NFIRS beginning on January 1st, 2026. So that system, there are even concerns of how long that system can even sustain, and if it can sustain past January 31. So again, we are asking you to download all that information and all of your 2025 data and before we get to the end of the year. And then your actual NERIS users, we want you to make sure that they have access to this user guide. So again, you click here, this is the NERIS user guide. It's technical, it's similar to the previous ones you would have seen for NFIRS. I will tell you the system is actually much easier to operate. It's easier to run reports, and it's so much more adaptable that I think that in general, the fire service will be incredibly happy about the end product. But the reality is it's new. Everything is new, and we're just continuing to work through the process. But Bailey can talk to you a little bit about the nationwide deployment and how that's gone. And the reality is the only reason we're able to go ahead of schedule is because things have been working well across the United States. So again, NFIRS will not, you'll hear me repeat myself multiple times because I want to be very clear on a couple of these pieces, which is NFIRS will no longer accept reports after December 31st. So January 1, you cannot submit any more reports to NFIRS. And then when we say NFIRS sunsets, that's what we're talking about, the actual data warehouse, your actual eNFIRS incidents that you want to be able to pull down. None of that will be available after January 31st. And NERIS has nothing to do with any of that old data. It is two separate systems and it will continue to move forward. So additional resources, again, in the presentation, and we can put the link to the presentation directly in the chat as well. I'll do that as soon as I stop talking. And you can click the onboarding form directly here. You can view the webinar here. This meeting is also being recorded, so you'll be able to have access to this. We'll also drop this in this link. And if you want to register for the third webinar, you can do that here. Additional links to the help desk, to the NERIS contact page, to our website, and to the email account for NERIS at Michigan. And then lastly, we just have a link tree with the documents that are already in this presentation are all here with the individual links and the different pieces that you will need, along with a series of training videos that FSRI provided. You cannot click on the presentation while I'm playing it. I'll put the link to the presentation in and you'll have access to all of the links. Sorry, that was a question just came across. For specific NERIS questions, you contact the help desk. So again, this is going to go directly to NERIS. They are the technical expert in this space. So they'll be able to help you and their team can assist you with that. If you do not receive an email or you have additional questions, please send them to us. We are here to support you. We're here to support you in the transition. And we know that all of these unknowns create a lot of anxiety for departments. Our goal is to make it as simple as we possibly can because we truly do believe that this is a better product than anything we've ever experienced. And it will give us more actionable intelligence to be able to assist your fire departments on what your actual needs are, from a community risk standpoint to a staffing and deployment standpoint to station design. There's so much flexibility, so much information available that we'll be able to use in a dashboard format. So with that, I will bounce out of this part of the conversation. If there are some questions, we can go ahead and answer a couple of them now. But we'll dive right into Bailey's portion, which may answer some of those for you. So please put your questions in the chat and we will follow back up at the end of Bailey's presentation and we will go from there. So at this point, I just want to say thank you again to Bailey for not only the first and the second webinar, also adding in the third one and for working with us. FSRI has truly been a partner in this process. The goal for us is the same as everybody else, is to make sure that this works for all departments and we get everybody on board. Because I think once you're fully in the system, I think you'll begin to appreciate the differences and the improvements that have been made between NFIRS and NERIS. So Bailey, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Chief. And yeah, I will try to keep a monitor on the chat and the Q&A, but we'll leave plenty of time at the end for that. And if you watched the first webinar, there was quite a bit of time for that was allotted, and it was a really good conversation that was had across those channels. So as Chief said, my name is Bailey. I'm going to walk through the system itself for when you get into the system. I posted a link to sign up if you have not onboarded yet. So if you have not been into the NERIS system yet, that is a good place to go. That request goes to Chief Hughes's office and goes to Kimberly and the rest of the staff for approval. And then once the approval happens, usually within 24 hours, you are given, you are sent an email with a temporary password to log into NERIS. Once you log in, it looks like this. You will also get an email that tells you that you've been added to your fire department's roster. If you were on as an admin for multiple departments, you'll get multiple of that secondary email telling you that you have been added. So when you are in the system, once you do your temporary password, set your permanent password, this is what it will look like. You'll see your name, email, all of that, and any departments that you're associated with. If you have multiple departments, they will all be listed here. You should log in under one email to access those departments. You can have one account for multiple departments. The first thing we ask you to do is to go in here and edit your department information and ensure it's correct. There's some pre-filled data in here, but you can add your logo. You'll see us in here as FSRI Fire Department. We are, of course, not a real fire department, but this is great for demonstration purposes. You'll see our headquarters location, mailing address. You're able to put your jurisdiction. If you need help updating your GIS boundaries, you can complete a help desk ticket here. This takes you directly to that ticket. You can also denote what services you provide, from fire services to EMS services and investigatory services. You can note your shifts, how many are active on last modification, and the duration of your shifts. So if you're working 24 48s or another version of that shift, you can denote that there. You can put your staffing information in, what your dispatch center is, and if you don't know that, you can click here and it'll take you to find that code for your dispatch center. It also, there's some stuff here that you may need to get from 911 about how your PSAP operates with your department. There's software integration information and then assessments. At the end of this, there will be a little checkbox for you to say that you confirm that your data is correct. Ours is gone because we've already checked that box. Once you check it, it will also disappear, but that lets us and the State Fire Marshal's Office know that you have reviewed that information and that it is correct. It's not just what was pre-filled in there from the jump. And sometimes that information is correct. We just want to validate that with the department. You can also add your stations, and you can even add your apparatus in here as well that belong to each station. So you'll see this station here. You'll see each of the units, the type of unit, the name, and then what the minimum staffing is, and if that staffing is dedicated. We got a question in the chat earlier about adding users. You can go here on the left to add users to your account. If you're the admin and you fill out that form that is approved by the State Fire Marshal's Office, you can go in and add other members of your department. There's no need for them to fill out that form as well. You can just click invite, put their email address and their name and click invite, and that will trigger the same email for a temporary password that you received when you first onboarded as well. We talked a little bit about RMS integrations for enrollments. That is listed here, and Chief showed the one pager on how to do that. If you use an RMS or a records management system like ESO, EPR Fireworks, Emergency Networking, First Do, there's several of them. We have 30 that are integration partners right now with the system. You can put their enrollment ID in that field in the enrollments tab. The RMS company provides you with that key. It is the same key for each of their software products. So they may have multiple keys for their software depending on how many products they offer, but for each product it is the same key. Once that is in, that will link your NERIS account to your RMS. That does not mean that you have to start reporting to NERIS. So if you sign up and get your onboarding stuff done today with the intention to start reporting on November 1st, as long as you have that enrollment ID in there, the RMS can flip your form to NERIS on November 1st, and the data will start flowing automatically through that. There's also some resources over here like the data dictionary, some technical reference guides that Chief mentioned, and then some user references. There is a link to the help desk as well. There's multiple types of help desk tickets that you can fill out related to what kind of help you need. And there was a question about whether it's an RMS problem or a NERIS problem. You can always fill out a help desk ticket, and if it is a vendor issue, we're happy to route you back that direction and say, hey, this is actually something that needs to be discussed with your RMS vendor. So you can click down here to the submit a request, and then that will open up this. You also have the option to submit specific types of requests. So we talked about those of you who use e-infers right now, you need to request direct incident logging within the system. So logging an incident is not turned on by default. You have to request that be turned on. So you can go here, say that your environment's production, put in your NERIS ID and just say, I need access to direct incident reporting, and then click send, and we will turn that on for you. Once that's turned on, you'll get this log an incident button. You do not need to direct report or have access to direct reporting if you have a records management system. This is only for if you use the eInFirst platform. But once you do that, you have full access to the incident report within the system, which it'll load here. You can see that. It'll pre-fill your NERIS ID. It'll give an incident number. If you want to use your own, you can remove that. And then you can fill out the report based on what type of incident you responded to. You can also go up here. There's some more resources like frequently asked questions. If you have a question about which RMS providers are integration partners with NERIS, those are all listed here, and we update this pretty frequently. And then let's see, there's more resources like videos, user references, our blog, how to contact us, and then another link to the help desk as well. All right, Chief, did I miss any of the highlights? I'll look through the chat. I saw something in there about if you use a third-party RMS vendor, do I still need a NERIS account? The answer is yes. You have to complete onboarding. Even if you have a vendor account, you need to link your RMS provider to the NERIS system itself to transmit the data.
And Bailey, just for clarification, when we're working with a third party, the majority of that work is going to be on the third party's end. They're going to provide you the information. They can give you the walkthrough. They can help you get onboarded, connect the data to their data set, correct? Yeah,
so they're the ones who provide that enrollment integration ID, which you mentioned is an API key that connects them to our API and makes data flow for the fire department. That's very technical. What they're actually doing is you're just connecting two systems to each other, right? So yes, they can help with that. We can also help with that if any errors are run into.
No, and that all makes sense. I think most of the questions that have been on here, I think we've been able to answer. There was one question about they will still have the ability to put persons involved, the property owner information, all that stuff the same way NFIRST did. I think that, yes, we know the answer to that is yes. The question was, can it be redacted for FOIA? There's no mechanism for NERIS for that, right? You'd have to either do that through Adobe or something along those lines, or is that already a mechanism built into NERIS?
Yeah, so NERIS actually does not accept PII at all. We actually scrub it from the narrative as well when the incident record hits our system. So you shouldn't have concerns with any of that related to any PII being exposed in your printed version of the form. You can print your incidents within NERIS. So let me show that really quick. I'll go to a department here. Oh, come on.
I can't spell it either, so.
No, why does it always, I always spell it wrong. Okay, so this is what you'll see within your system. So here's Chesapeake, Virginia Fire Department. You can see their stations, their insights. So this is their dashboards. Each of you have access to your own suite of dashboards within the system as well. Even if you have a third-party RMS, this will still fill in. And then you have incidents as well. So you can click on one of these incidents, and then there's a print button where you can print that. This is being updated actually next week, and the new print is really, really nice. So we're excited to roll that out for everybody because it puts everything in a really nice format. So that should, if you're worried about PII from that FOIA purposes, that shouldn't be a concern. Anything else you'd need to use something like Adobe probably to redact that. Yeah, if you're looking.
Bailey, you mentioned,
yeah,
sorry.
Yeah. No,
you mentioned that, so in this case, this dashboard you're looking at now, once you are onboarded and all your information is in and correct, you will see all of this information, whether you have a third party, whether you are using a NERIS Direct, all of this information is available to you. So if your department does not currently have the ability to, they don't have a GIS person, you don't have IT staff to be able to do this, that's normally where we would have had to do that in the past. We wouldn't have that type of information. So this is a major, major improvement for organizations to be able to see where your incidents are, where your station, all that information about your organization, all at a glance. It's all in one place. So this is a really, really nice feature, especially if you're not using a third party. You're not using any sort of RMS system that has some of these platforms or reports built or dashboards. You have all this available to you.
Yep, so like this is, for example, Memphis, if I was logged in as them, it's showing that view. So you have all of your stations. They have like 55, I believe, no more than that now, 59 stations. And then they have insights as well. So we can see where their incidents are. You also have the ability, once this loads, to export this basic incident information from this dashboard. So you'll see here, they've reported 9,000 incidents into the system with 19,000 unit responses so far. My computer is being extremely slow, but you can export this table out to a CSV and download all that basic information for each of the incidents, including the narrative. So you'll see here the beginning of some of their narratives for Engine 43 apparently is really good at writing narratives because theirs are the two that show up first. So
They show up.
yeah. But this also gives you more information about your calls. So what type of calls you're performing, how many, so they just started reporting, I want to say the beginning of October. So you'll see their steep climb up in terms of the number of incidents they report. And then if I zoom in on this map, it will show me where those incidents are happening. So you do have access to this regardless of whether you have an RMS. So
Very good.
okay. I will pause my screen sharing and I will answer some of the questions if that's okay.
Billy, can you show us how to log an incident for those that are using NERIS and not using a third party?
Yep. So to log an incident, when you log into the system, this is what it will look like. You'll have your name and your fire department. You can click on your fire department and then log an incident, and that'll capture your NERIS ID in order to create that incident record. So you'll see here, it'll pre-fill some stuff like the incident number and your NERIS ID, and you'll be able to pick things like your incident type. You'll note that this was already filled out. So I was in here earlier today. That's intentional. So if you get a call in the middle of an incident report and you get logged out, it will save your data in the system. So you can come back to your most recent thing. You're not going to lose anything if you get toned out. You can add your times, your units. If you added your units into the system, like we showed that units by station, they will show up in this drop-down box. You'll see all my units that were under station 1 are in here. So I can just pick one rather than having to type it every time. And then you can fill all of this stuff is you can fill out. You can also select where that incident happened. So you can geolocate yourself based on where you are and then find where the incident was. Use a point or an intersection. So if it's an MVA, you are able to show that it happened at an intersection or a mile marker. And then the location type, more specifics on the location type, how it was being used, mutual and automatic aid, and whether you are supporting an agency that may not be a fire department. There's actions and tactics that have been expanded within the system. So you'll see things in like search structure, for example, you'll be given other options or provide equipment. Other options are provided there as to what type of equipment provided you do. There's a casualties module, different fire protection information. And then, I gotta pick one since I picked it. And then it'll take you, I picked fire, so it's giving me the structure fire module as well. So I can pick structure fire, anything related to the structure fire, what type of water I flowed, what the damage to the building is. Again, Chief mentioned we tried to put this in plain language, so it's minor, moderate, or major. We're not asking you for a dollar amount in this part of the report. How many stories above ground it was, the area of origin, who did the investigation, and if one was conducted, different things like that. So I won't bore everyone by filling out this whole report, but there's only one more page to this, and that's the narrative. It's 2 open-ended text boxes, and then that was the entirety of the report.
Very good. Thank you, Bailey.
Yeah.
So one of the additional questions here. So, yeah, if we can run through some of the questions that have popped up here. We've answered some, but there's a few more. So one of them is, it says, will the RMS vendors be able to transmit our data now and first stop doing it to a 2-party integration? So once they are onboarded and fully reporting with NERIS, we don't want them reporting to NFIRS any longer. So you're only completing one report. Once you're fully on board and reporting, that is your switch. So onboarding is the first step. While you're onboarding or until you're formally reporting through NERIS, you will still use NFIRS. The minute you go live with NERIS, you will no longer work with NFIRS anymore. Is that correct? Just one report at this point.
Yeah, and you, if you in the state of Michigan, you can start reporting as soon as you'd like, and as soon as your RMS is ready to start reporting. So most of the big ones have started reporting and transmitting data. So we showed a few; those were real incidents in the system that I was showing. So you can start as soon as you're ready.
Okay, we do have a question in here. We have full-time career, part-time career, or volunteer are the three labels that were in the system. This is probably more of a state question as to how we are going to look at this or how we'd recommend it, just to have some consistent data. What is NERIS defined as part-time career? I think what we're really talking about here is it's full-time, it's part-time, or it's non-paid. In Michigan, for the user roles that we have, again, it's paid, part paid, or non-paid. So in that capacity, we would still consider that, even though they're staffing the station. I think for our position, the position would be, we're still considering that to be part-time. They are part-time employees. That is where I think that we should fall under that category. Paid on call, again, is not volunteer. If they were receiving payment, that would be part-time, or your paid on call kind of all falls in that category. Those that are truly volunteer agencies, those are what fall under non-paid for us, at least on how our current those different categories. Is that accurate, Bailey? That's more of a state decision than a NERIS decision.
Yeah.
Is there a capability to edit run numbers? So if you put a run number in and you have to modify that, do you have that ability, or is that a set number? And the statement here says, with NFIRS, it was quite difficult to make changes if a mistake was made after the number was saved. What does that look like on the NERIS front?
Yeah, so you can edit the incident after you've completed it. So, and you have the ability to set your own incident ID.
Okay. And most of your other incident IDs, that's working with your dispatch center. That's why we need that dispatch information, correct? To be able to generate those numbers. Is that correct?
Right. And a lot of the RMS companies have integration with CAD that's already happening. So NERIS will intake any of the data that is being facilitated through that CAD RMS integration. So if CAD is assigning an incident ID and it's already being transmitted into the RMS, it will also be carried over into NERIS.
Okay. We have someone in here asking, saying that they're in NERIS now and their location is incorrect. That's what we're talking about going through the help desk with, right? Submitting that ticket. They can click on the link to take them directly to that within the onboarding package.
Yeah, if your stations or address are incorrect, you can update that. If your boundary information is incorrect, I'll need a shapefile for those, and we can get that updated for you. Yep.
And for clarity for some of our staff, again, we're not all tech professionals, including myself. Shapefile is just the standard terminology for any really geographic information systems information. So you can either obtain that if you have a local GIS department in-house. You may have to get that information from the county who would have GIS, and that's something that we could even try to see where we can assist. We don't have that information, but it's possible we can assist you in that. So we just ask you to be open with us. Again, our goal is just to help you through the process and get you on board as quickly as we can with the correct information. How do you obtain the third-party client ID for integration? Bailey, can you just touch on that again?
Yep. So you get that from your RMS vendor. So they know what product of theirs you have, and they can give you the correct ID. It's a big, long ID that they will email you. We recommend copying and pasting it out of that into NERIS.
A question here, I'll just answer it openly. Previously, you had to export incidents and then import them into NFIRS. If you use a third party, do you not have to do that anymore? Yes, no. You do not need to do that anymore. It is pushing directly in from your third party. You don't need to do anything else. I have a gentleman here saying that the login incident button for the department is not showing up. My guess is that's because they're not fully onboarded, or they're not currently reporting. Is that correct?
Well, you have to request direct incident reporting. So if you use
That's right, I'm
eInfers, so I put that link in the chat for the help desk ticket. So it's already sort of pre-filled. You put production, put your NERIS ID, and then we'll turn that on for you.
So the reality is about 35% of our fire departments in the state of Michigan do not use a third-party reporting system.
Right.
So as of right now, it is turned off automatically. So not just with us, with all states, it's turned off automatically. You have to request access for that login incident. And it's just to basically verify and validate the information, because you're missing the step of the third party doing any of that in the process. So we want to make sure the information coming in is correct.
Yeah, and we didn't want departments that have an RMS to use that before their RMS was ready to start transmitting data. So we require that to be an intentional step. We want to make sure that you don't have an RMS before we turn that on.
If we start reporting to NERIS on December 1st, do we also need to report to NFIRS for that month? And the answer to that is no. Once you go live and you are reporting to NERIS, you do not need to continue to report to NFIRS. Can you add more than one unit that responds? Short answer is yes. You can add whatever units respond to that incident, correct?
Yes, you can add, it asks you first how many units responded, and then it will pre-populate different modules for each apparatus based on how many you put. So if there's 2, it'll give you 2 different ones to add.
The mutual aid, let's see, we have a question here. Oh, there was a limit to how many selections to describe each field in NFIRS. So I think the question is probably related to you had to pick what category it was falling in. We have more flexibility now where we can select multiple types of incidents on the same one. I think Bailey used maybe a car fire into a house or something like that in the last example, where you have multiple incidents and you're able to now select all of those types for that particular incident, right?
Yeah, so like if you have a motor vehicle accident that the car catches on fire and there's entrapment, you can list all 3 of those incident types within NERIS. So there's up to 3 incident types you can pick. 1 is required.
Let's see, there's a question here. Does Michigan have any fields that are required in addition to what NERIS has on their incident report? We do not currently. We're using the standard NERIS document.
I see a question about aid given. So there's 3 options for aid given now. There's aid given or received, acting as, or acting in lieu of. So aid given and received is the traditional type of mutual aid. In lieu of is if your department responds and the department that's supposed to be responding is unable to. And then acting as is if you're acting as that department for that call. So the best example I can give there is if you're backfilling a station for like a fire department funeral or something like that, and you're acting out of that station, but you're the one doing the report, that's when that can be used. So we're getting better about why we're going into other people's territories.
Yeah, no, and that's helpful for reporting on the back end to show what those numbers looks like. Let's see here. Will NERIS start the fire run report with a medical report similar to NFIRS? So NERIS will start a report of every report that comes across from CAD, basically, correct? So as those are normally coming into the system with your RMS, even though we had a third-party EMS that we were utilizing to do the EMS reporting, we were still doing an incident report that was being reported to NFIRS. So we would basically, you were still duplicating. This currently does not work with NEMSIS, but they are in some conversations. So I won't get anyone's hopes up because I have no idea how long something like that takes. But NERIS is working with NEMSIS. I think they all understand the goal is to make this as streamlined as possible for fire departments and to be able to get accurate information. And there's nothing worse than having to do the same report 2 or 3 times for different reasons. So we're navigating that the best we can.
Yeah, and we've gotten a few questions, Chief, about FOIA requests related to NFIRS data. My best advice is to get the data out of NFIRS. If you have an RMS, they have your historical incident data. I would go ahead and pull a copy of that down or ask them for it just to have it. But go ahead and get that out of the system and ready in case you do get questions about it.
Let's see. AFG applications is on here. A question about AFG. Would the next application process include NERIS and NFIRS if we were to start reporting before January 1? And I assume that answer would be yes. So if you need to show 2025 data, you're going to have to show 11 months of NFIRS data and 1 month of NERIS data in that report.
You would summarize your full call volume for the whole year, regardless of which system you were using.
This is a new question to the thread here. How can we add a Canadian mutual aid department into our system?
We're working on it.
Okay.
It's not just for Michigan.
We can't be the only one. Yeah.
No, like Maine, Vermont. We've got a bunch. New York. They all cross over the border. And Pennsylvania. Actually, we're working on it.
Let's see here. Do you have to be up to date in NFIRS before transitioning to NERIS? Or can you just start using NERIS if you're behind in reporting? I don't know that that's so much an FSRI question. The reality is, yes, you could start reporting to NERIS today, once you're onboarded and up and running. We would still ask you to get all of your information up to date in NFIRS before that system closes down. So if you're talking about, I would not be reporting previous incidents into NERIS. I'd only be reporting incidents once NERIS goes live. It's just incidents going forward. Everything before that date, let's say it's November 1st, everything else should be then, updated in NFIRS at that point in time. Is that an appropriate approach, Bailey?
Yeah. And if you're using an RMS, that probably won't matter as much. They'll just flip the form over for you and your data will just flow to in a different direction. So, but yeah, you'll want to make sure you're caught up before you start reporting into NERIS.
Okay, and I'm gonna just pull a couple questions from the previous one and run through them real quick. We are working on a frequently asked question document. We'll take questions from this webinar as well and put them on the FAQ that will go forward. There was a question about cost. Does NERIS cost anything? And the answer to that is no. There is no charge to utilize NERIS. So that was one of the big questions from last time. Let's see here. Should fire departments reach out to their third-party vendor to check on their status and or progress? I would tell you yes. If you haven't heard anything from your third-party vendor about NERIS, I would reach out to them. Most of the departments that are onboarded already are expecting this. They know this is coming. They've known this is coming. They're already doing it in other states. There may be some smaller entities that are not doing it, or some local or kind of homemade systems. Yes, you need to have that conversation with what that looks like. And I think it came up in the last meeting, Bailey, about like a homemade system. Some departments were using something similar to that. And again, without getting super technical, there is an API available to those systems, but you'd have to work directly with FSRI to be able to do that. Is that correct?
Yeah, so they have to be an integration partner. So I showed that list on the NERIS web page. There's a few tests to the API that they need to pass and some more technically developmental work that needs to be done to ensure that the data coming into NERIS meets the standard schema.
Yeah, understood.
And so without getting too technical, yes, they have to get approval from from our system in order to start transmitting data.
Again, this is just an important point, so I'm going to reiterate it again. Your NERIS data will not connect to, or I'm sorry, your NFIRS data will not connect to NERIS. It is open and closed. You're flipping a light switch going from one to the next. So you cannot pull that data into NERIS. I think that covered the majority of the questions that we had previously. And then the Q&A we'll put out has some additional links in there that MI Prevention Group has put together to assist this process, which has links back to FSRI and some of their components. I personally think the biggest struggle that departments are going to have is the initial shapefile piece. If you have smaller municipalities that don't have tech services or an IT department or anyone like that, for any of the bigger departments or bigger counties, you're going to have access to that information. And that information is critical for us. We have to verify and validate that. So when we're looking at mapping, it's going to show where your incidents are in your municipality based on those boundaries. So I don't know that there's anything that either FSRI or we can necessarily do. Those are going to be kind of a case by case basis. Is that right, Bailey?
That's correct. We just got a question about the staffing names and information. So your RMS company may log that staffing information by incident, but that is not transmitted to NERIS. There is no staffing or firefighter PII that's transmitted to the system.
Which was the same as NFIRS, correct? NFIRS wasn't.
No, NFIRS did.
NFIRS did collect
collect.
that. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, you can send me a KMZ. Yep.
I don't even know what that is, so I'll just let you handle that one. So.
No, we don't have a preferred third-party vendor. As long as they're an integration partner, they are good to transmit data to NERIS. They've passed the API tests. Yes, training events in NERIS. No, not right now. We're adding, there's some extra schemas that are being added to the system, including community risk reduction. I think that training could be one that's potentially put in there. Training is more, less of an incident and more of an activity that's being conducted. I know that like even community risk reduction type events were logged as incidents in NERIS. We're trying to give that a place to go that's not just like we're trying to keep incidents over here and any like mitigative training community outreach based events over here so that they're not intermingled, but they're more well documented for what they are. So you won't complete an incident report for trainings.
And that's the reality with a lot of the data we're receiving. Some departments, you'll see service calls that are through the roof. And it's because they're logging, smoke alarm installs and things of that nature as service calls. So your incident volume goes up. And the reality is, at one point, that is how we got stations. That's how we got people, and that's how we got stations as well. Look at our call volume jumped. But as people start diving further into the data, they see that they're non-priority calls or they're non-emergency calls or whatever the case is. So having a different mechanism to be able to track that is important as people dive further into it. There was a question here. In the new NERIS system, is there no activity tab if there are no calls for that reporting period? And I think your answer last time was yes, there is a no activity report to be completed.
That's correct. It's actually being worked on actively today. It should be deployed within the next month. I'd say is a very safe bet. It will likely be before then. If we have an RMS but don't have CAD, yes, you can still create incidents even if there's no CAD integration. You'll just have to add those times that would traditionally come from CAD. There's a question about how long help desk tickets are being taken to answer.
Yes. Changes by the day.
Yeah, I mean, we are pretty quick. The exception to that is GIS boundary updates. Those do take me a bit to get done just because it is a little bit more of a nuanced process of like combining all those files together a lot of times and creating that boundary. So I am a little bit behind on those. Every other request is being turned around pretty fast.
And just, can you confirm one more time the PII aspect? I think that's a concern that a lot of people have here. So
correct. There is no PII being entered into the system. If it is in a narrative, it is scrubbed when the incident hits the system. You'll see asterisks if PII is detected. It will the little stars.
I think that is the majority of the questions that we have received so far. We'll give it another minute or two here if anyone has additional questions. Again, our ask is just to get everyone onboarded, to go through the onboarding process. So Kimberly, if you can put that link in the chat again, just at the end here, that would be helpful. So it's at the bottom. That's the onboarding form that needs to be filled out, and then you'll be able to move from there.
And Anthony, no, that's wrong. So if you use a third-party vendor, you do need to do the onboarding acceptance form. You do need to complete that. You need to log into NERIS and get your account set up.
And again, there is no personnel section for employees as there was in NFIRS. It's solely about incident reporting. That's what we're really looking at this point through NERIS. That is what the feds are looking for in this current program. Again, if you're using a third party, they do have modules for staffing, for training, for all those other pieces. But no, for NERIS, you will not have the ability to enter that information in.
So I think
Again,
Nadine's question isn't getting answered. She's asking about personal sections that was in NFIRS, and will NERIS have that? So there was personal files that you could have for trainings, personal jackets, and sections that you could basically have notes and documentation on your fire department within NERIS. I'm sorry, within NFIRS. Will NERIS have those same capabilities?
I never saw where they could save personal information, any documents or anything in NFIRS.
Okay.
They could list their personnel so that when they fill out a report, they could just pick the people, but they never had folders that I'm aware of for any training or personnel. That would be more internal, I would think.
I'm just reading Nadine's question.
Yeah, I saw it and I was like,
Okay.
I don't see where that would have ever happened.
Am I going to have to do a NERIS report for every EMS engine run? Yes, you will have to do a NERIS report the same way you're doing an NFIRS report now. So again, the EMS side of that is the completely separate report on the other side. So where I came from, we had an RMS system for the fire side, and we would complete the reports there. So that would have all of our incident numbers, and then our EMS reports would be pieces of those same incident numbers. We carry them from one to the other, but it would just be for the EMS report. So the EMS report in NFIRS for us was just, it was a medical call, the CAD information, and that was about it. It would say C narrative from EMS report run number XXX and X. So it would be the same way. It would be the same way that currently NFIRS was operating like that. And yes, there was a Bailey, thank you for asking that. We can get, we will start to post probably once we get some more departments onboarded. I think as of this call, we were in the high 40s of departments who would at least sent in the onboarding program, and that's out of our 1,061 fire departments that we have currently listed. So good progress, to be kind of a few weeks in here and ahead of schedule, but we know we still have a lot of work to do. So we appreciate any assistance that the departments on the call can provide, getting with their other departments who aren't here or haven't received the communications, whether that's from Gov Delivery or from the smoke system. We are navigating the best ways to communicate at large to the fire service. The reality is email is that mechanism, but open to suggestions if anyone has other ways that we can communicate a little better across the state. So, but as of right now, they go out via Gov Delivery, they get posted on our website, and then we've also sent internally what we call smoke signal to specific users. So chiefs, department secretaries, training coordinators through that process. And we'll do the same thing again. Likely next week with a reminder for the next upcoming event. Well, the chat seems to have slowed down here a bit. Again, please, if you have any specific questions you want us to add to that, I'll ask you here. Yeah. As far as the state having some contract like the EMS division, I'll tell you we're actively having conversations with EMS on a variety of topics, seeing how we could streamline it for the fire departments. I cannot tell you there is anything in process right now as far as having a single RMS system or reporting system. And realistically, it would take some time to even get through that process to see what that looked like from an RFP standpoint and how we would even fund something like that. So I don't have any direction on that, but we'll absolutely reach out to EMS and discuss a little further about that. And no, to your next question here, would you like us to report to both systems once NERIS is active for us until December 31st? No. The minute you go live with NERIS, not just the onboarding, but the minute you begin your first incident report into NERIS, whether that's your RMS or logging an incident through NERIS, you do not have to submit those reports to NFIRS any longer.
And you can't submit them after December 31st, just to reiterate that. So I know you said until, but I wanted to make sure everybody knows that.
All right. Well, Bailey, I appreciate the time. Everyone on the call, I appreciate you being here. Again, you have the email address. If you have specific questions, please reach out. We would be the first to admit we don't know how every department is doing each of these things across the entire state. So if there are specific issues that we can help with, it brings awareness to it because maybe you're not the only department having those issues or concerns. So if there's something we can do to help out, please don't hesitate to send an email to NERIS and our team will get back with you. And if we have to pull Bailey back in for something, we will absolutely do that. So I appreciate that. The next webinar is the same webinar. We're going to go over the same process, the same conversation. This reporting will again be available. They're probably pretty close to being duplicates of the last one. And we'll continue to do those. And then as we get more and more onboarded, we'll continue to communicate. So if you have not signed up for Gov Delivery, I would ask you to sign up for Gov Delivery as soon as you can. That is an easy way for us to communicate with the group. And then if you haven't updated your smoke profile, that is the other mechanism. Get your information, make sure you have an updated email address in smoke. We can help get that information out to you quicker. And if you have other mechanisms that would improve communication, please don't hesitate to let us know. So again, thank you everyone. I appreciate it. And Rhonda will still be here for one last call, but again, I want to say thank you so much to Rhonda for all of her work over the years and for assisting fire departments. I feel like she was the front line for BFS for a very, very long time. So we appreciate it, and we know we have a big hole to fill. So thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.